Y'all, I'm in North Carolina. And every time I see a scenic overlook, I just have to stop. So, do you have to stop at scenic overlooks? I really enjoy them. I just enjoy seeing the beautiful world that God has created. So, yeah, I'm on my way to Mars Hill, North Carolina. There is a little antique shop there that I'm excited to visit and take you along with me.
You tell me you're scared. You tell me you're weak.
Okay, so I'm here at Fabulous Finds and Collectibles. I have never been to this shop. It doesn't look like it's very big from the outside, so I'm anxious to go see what it looks like on the inside. I had seen some photos on Google and it looked like a cute little shop. So let's go inside and see what they've got today.
But I know you're stronger than what you think. And I know it's hard. It's rough, but we'll make it through, and I'll back you up. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. You tell me you're say you're afraid. I wish you could see that. I think you're brave, and if it all falls, if it all breaks, I'll still be here. We'll fix these mistakes. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. Wherever you're
Okay, so I've talked about this before. There's like antique stores and then there's antique stores. And my favorites, because I have a poor man's budget, tends to be the like vintage antique malls where you have lots of booths and lots of different vendors. And you can usually find vintage home decor for reasonable prices for the most part. This Fabulous Finds and Collectibles was a beautiful shop, and I wish I had money. There was a pine table in there that was stunning. It was on sale for $360, and it was actually like the size. I've been looking for one that I can use in my kitchen as kind of an island, but to do like cooking videos on. And I mean, it was small, and I have a small kitchen. I don't have a lot of floor space in my kitchen. So I really don't have room for like an island, but this table was small enough that, you know, if I could afford $360, it would have been something that I could move around and use and then put it out of my way when I didn't need it. So, you know, that was kind of a bummer. I wish I had more money. That would be the kind of thing that, you know, I would need to save up for, but I'm currently saving for other things. So, you know, priorities and everything, but, you know, it's not something I actually need. And, I could get it if I really, really wanted to. I could swing it, but, not at the expense of like other financial goals that I have. And, you know, it's just not at the top of my priority list. So this shop was a true antique shop. And the prices were a little bit pricier, and that's okay. I spoke with the lady behind the counter, and she's very nice. I told her I would have loved to have taken that table home with me, but you know, I don't. I see people complain about antique store prices a lot, and you know, I truly believe that some antiques are more valuable than others, and that's okay. You know, I have my budget, and people who can afford more can afford more. There's nothing wrong with saying that this is something, you know, this is what people will pay for this particular antique. I'm sure that she knew her stuff. So anyhow, it's in Mars Hill, North Carolina, Fabulous Finds and Collectibles. And it was a fun little perusal. I wish I had more money. So such is life. We have like several trips coming up, and you know, I have other things that are just a little bit more that I'm prioritizing right now, you know, beyond like furniture for my house that I don't like desperately need. So anyway, there's actually literally nothing in this world that I need. Anything I bring home is pretty much just a want, and I'm very blessed. So I recognize that, and that's I'm thankful. But hi guys, welcome back. So last week I drove over to Mars Hill, North Carolina to go to an antique store there that I found on Google. I looked at photos, and it looked like it was going to be a great little shop to peruse. And I drove all the way over there. I want to say it was like 3 hours from me, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. But anyway, it was a shop that I had never been to. And I don't want to say that it was a bad shop, because it wasn't. It was a beautiful shop. But it wasn't what I was expecting or hoping for when I went there. And basically, I just couldn't afford anything in the store. And I see people complain quite often about, you know, how pricey antique stores are, which that can be true. And I've talked about this in other videos before, where there's antiques and then there's antiques. So when I walk into an antique mall, I'm looking for inexpensive, vintage, home decor kind of stuff that's just easy to come by. You know, I'm not looking for exquisite art or, you know, rare pieces of art or rare antiques. I don't have it in my budget to pay a lot of money for antiques for my home. And I know that most of you don't either, and that's okay. But antique stores, you know, there's like two different kinds of antique stores. So you're going to find antique stores that, you know, really have high-end antiques. And I don't want to ever say that those antiques are not worth what they're priced at, because to somebody they are. People pay good money for really nice quality antiques, and that's totally fine. And if an antique store dealer has priced their pieces at a price that's above or out of my budget, I know that they know the value of what they're selling, and it doesn't like offend me. It doesn't offend me for a small business owner to price their goods at a fair market price, you know, and that's, they know what people who are looking for those types of antiques are willing to pay. So the other kind of antique store is like a vendor's mall, where you walk in and there's lots of booths. And sometimes there's antique stores too that aren't just like booths. They may be owned by the same, like everything in the store may be owned by the owner of the store, but you know, we're talking about things that aren't necessarily high end. And that's the kind of antique store that I typically like to shop at. Some people call it like junking. I have just always called it antiquing, but I like to go to places where, you know, they're selling quirky home decor, they're selling vintage Pyrex, they're selling, you know, just vintage stuff, that I find to be a lot of fun and perfect for my home. So having said that, you're typically going to find better prices at an antique mall or a junk store than you are in like a high-end antique store. There's a difference, you know, so you have your vintage antiques and you have your true pricey antiques. So it's good to know the difference before you go shopping, because if you just walk into like a regular antique store and all you see is like high-end, high-priced stuff that's out of your budget, don't think that there aren't antique stores in your area that are going to have better prices, because there are. I guarantee you that somewhere around you, you have some antique shops that have vintage goods that are reasonably priced. Okay, so having said that, gosh, when I went to the shop in Mars Hill, North Carolina, there was a few things in there I really did wish I could afford. In fact, when I was leaving, you know, I had thanked the proprietor, you know, and told her she had a lovely shop, and you know, she had mentioned to me that some things were on sale, and I told her, you know, that there was this table back there that I absolutely loved, this table, and I thought that it would be perfect to use in my kitchen for like cooking videos and things like that. And if I had had $360 to spend on one table, I would have brought that thing home with me. I loved that table. And I told her, you know, that it was just unfortunately out of my price range. And, you know, and I'm okay with that. And I'm sure that she was okay with that too, because she wants to make a profit on what she's selling. And that's okay. So I just wanted to encourage you guys that, you know, don't think that antiquing is out of your price range. You can find good deals in antique stores. I do it all the time. I know what things are priced at. I know what things cost a lot of money. And I know a good deal when I see it, because I do a lot of antiquing and I pay attention to prices when I go. Like, you know, when I went to Johnson City this last time, I found that croquet set, which typically I personally see them usually running around $75 to $85 or more dollars. And I got that set. It's in great condition for just $36. I was really, really pleased. So you just have to keep your eye out and look at prices when you go. Pay attention to prices, and you'll start seeing, you know, you'll start recognizing, you know, this particular thing usually runs for about this amount. And when you see it less, you can bring it home with you. So if it's something you like. Okay, so having said all of that, I wanted to share with you guys kind of a beginner's guide to antiquing, 10 things that you can bring home with you if you really just are new to antiquing and you don't know where to start. These are all things that I have purchased over the years and still bring home with me to this day from time to time if I find a good deal. Number 1 is ironstone or white dishes. I have so many like white ironstone platters, Homer Laughlin white dishes. I still love them. I use them in my day-to-day life. I use them for serving. I use them for eating. I even have some hanging on walls in my house. If you love to hang plates on walls, I don't know if that's a Southern thing, but I know that Southerners love to hang plates on their walls, and I do. Ironstone pieces can be very lovely displayed in various ways. And ironstone is one of those things that if you bring it home, it's a classic. You can use ironstone pretty much anywhere in your house and it's going to look good. Okay, number 2, you guys know I love vintage books. A couple of weeks ago, I went to this perfect little antiques and books store in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, and that place was so much fun. Vintage books just speak to my heart. I have always been a book lover ever since I was 10 years old and I discovered Nancy Drew. From that moment on, I was a book lover. And I even have a collection of vintage Nancy Drew books. Absolutely love it. I still pick them up when I find one at a good price. That if I don't have that particular one yet, I will bring it home with me. And I keep, little by little adding to my collection. Collections are fun. So vintage books, there's so many different ways that you can display vintage books. You can stack them underneath, to use as like a riser. You can put them under lamps. You could put them under vases. You could put a clock on top. There's so many different ways to use vintage books in your decor. And there's so many different styles of vintage books. Like I collect all kinds of books. This last week, I brought home a Yogi Bear book, you guys, which may be quirky to some, but it makes me happy. I have my Nancy Drew book collection. I have like really old religious books that my husband collected over the years. I have, like back here on this shelf back here, I have some of my favorite like vintage field guides and nature books because that's what speaks to me. But you just look for the things that really speak to your heart and then start a collection. It's a lot of fun. Vintage books are worth bringing home and you can use them in so many different ways. Number 3 is wooden crates or boxes, wooden drawers. I bought a few months ago, I brought home like a sewing drawer. I have so many wooden crates and boxes that I use in just different ways in my house. In fact, over by the fireplace, I keep like firewood in a vintage wooden box. Upstairs, I have a vintage wooden box filled with Marlowe's dog toys. What else do I have? Like I use wooden boxes over here, like to use as a riser for different things. Yeah, there's just so many ways to use wooden boxes and crates. Okay, number 4 is brass candlesticks. And I have so many brass candlesticks around my house. I don't even buy them anymore because I just don't need more. But brass candlesticks are just, you can use them anywhere in your house. They're always classic and, you can either polish them or don't polish them. The patina on brass can be very charming, but if you want, it to look shiny and new, go ahead and polish them up. I use them in my dining room. I have them in my living room. I have some in my bedrooms. I think I even have some in my kitchen. There's just a really great choice for, if you're new to antiquing, bring home some brass candlesticks. You won't be sorry. Okay, and then number 5 is vintage linens. And linens are something that I have also been collecting probably for 30 years. Every so often I bring home new like little crocheted doilies. I love vintage hankies. You can find vintage tablecloths. What else? Vintage quilts. I love quilts. And you guys know, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you know that I am a lover of handmade patchwork quilts. hobnail bedspreads. Like, there's so many different ways that you can bring vintage linens into your home. This vintage Afghan is one of my favorites. There's just antiquing for vintage linens is something that is really easy, and you just go, when you go, keep your eye out for those things. So just, when you're out shopping, these are things that you can be looking for. Okay, number 6 is like mason jars and different glassware. When you're shopping in an antique mall, you are going to find so many different like options when it comes to glassware. Not only will you find mason jars, you will find all kinds of like pitchers and glasses and dishes, and I collect blue and white china. I have been collecting, I like vintage, basically. Okay, so way back, story time. When I first started antiquing, when I was a young mom, one of my favorite things was depression glass, and I actually collected quite a bit of depression glass over the years. I don't use it as much as I used to. I still have like my pink depression glass cookie jar that I want to say it's in the attic right now, but when I found that thing, my heart stopped, because I looked for pink depression glass cookie jar literally for years, and every one that I would find wouldn't have a lid. And I will never forget being in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, in a little antique shop off of I-75 back probably 25 years ago, and walking into the shop and seeing it sitting there on the shelf, and it had the lid. And I want to say back then I paid like $60 for that thing. I loved that cookie jar, and I've used it for years and years. I'm not currently having it out and displayed, but I will probably pull it out again. And anyway, so glassware is just a really great, they're practical, and there's so many different options at the antique mall for glassware. And if you collect like vintage mason jars, you can use them for practical things like, food storage. You could store crayons in it, or you could store office supplies, or there's just so many ways to use a good mason jar. You could even use them like in your pantry or in your kitchen. I even like to collect the zinc mason jar lids. I saw a whole display, like a huge bowl of those zinc lids just, I think last week when I was in Johnson City. One of my favorite booths just had like a whole display, and they were just like $2 or $3 a piece for the lids. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, and then number 7 is artwork. The thing about art is that it's so subjective. So like, I have this beautiful, to me, camping oil painting on, I think it's oil, maybe it's acrylic. I take it back, I think it's acrylic. I have this beautiful like camping scene painted piece that I purchased in Johnson City a couple of years ago. I looked at that thing for weeks. I wanted it so bad, and I finally just broke down. It was $95. And you guys, that was a lot of money for me to spend. I don't regret it, because I looked at it for so long, and when I did finally buy it, I just felt like it was perfect for our family room. Somebody commented on one of my videos and said that was the ugliest thing they'd ever seen. And but you know what? I don't care, because I like it, and it fits my space, and it makes me happy. So artwork is a really great way, vintage artwork is a really great way to add charm and personality to your space. And antique stores, antique malls are full of vintage artwork. Okay, number 8 is mirrors. And I have, let's see, I think I have probably 2 vintage mirrors like that I have hung on the wall. Actually, no, I think I have 3. I have 3 vintage mirrors that I have hung up in various rooms. And the one in the dining room is one of my favorites. I found it in an antique store 2 or 3 years ago. And I can't remember how much I paid for it, but I love what it does for my dining room. We have a vintage mural in our dining room on the, it was like the original wallpaper in our dining room. And for a long time, I just didn't know what to do with my dining room walls because I had this mural with like sheep and people on it. And it was already busy enough, and I didn't want to add more visual like clutter to the wall. I love the wallpaper. I'm not calling the wallpaper clutter, but visually, like, I didn't want to add clutter to the room. I wanted the wallpaper to be the star. And so I hung this beautiful mirror with a gold frame on the wall, and it doesn't take away from the wallpaper. I love it. And I found it in an antique store, and I got a good deal on it. I remember I was looking for a mirror for quite a while, and when I found it, I knew that it was the perfect one. Number 9 is small furniture. And this is one of my absolute top suggestions because vintage furniture is so much better quality than all of the mass-produced stuff that you find in stores today. And you can find such good deals on vintage furniture. Whether you're going to antique malls or yard sales or thrift stores, and vintage furniture is just so well made. Vintage furniture is often priced really, really well. I have found some great deals on vintage furniture. In fact, my plaid couches here I found on Facebook Marketplace. So I had the couch and this chair that I'm sitting in. When we were redoing our family room, it was one of the things that we replaced was our couches. I got this set for $300. We drove all the way to South Carolina. It was like a 5-hour drive, but I was looking for something specific. I wanted plaid. I wanted plaid couches in my family room because I was going for a certain look. And I wanted something that would have been in a family room back in the 80s or 90s. And this was it. I am still so happy with this purchase. They came out of a little old lady's home. And she hardly ever used them. They looked brand new, and we use them. I still absolutely love this purchase. Vintage furniture can be just such a great find, and if you're new to antiquing, buying vintage furniture is just a really great way to get started. Okay, and then finally, number 10 is seasonal decor. I love being able to change out my decor in my house for the seasons, and especially Christmas. Vintage Christmas decor just sets my heart on fire. I love vintage Christmas decor, and one of the best compliments I ever got was from my daughter-in-law, Hannah Claire. A couple of years ago, she told me that she was learning so much about Christmas from me, and she said that my house just felt like Christmas. And it just, what more could I ask for than that? Like, I want, at Christmas time especially, I want my family to come in and just feel like it's the Christmas that childhood dreams are made of. And vintage Christmas decor, vintage seasonal decor is just a really fun way to add charm to your house. And you can find so many good deals in antique stores, antique malls. Have such a variety of things, and you can just add the most quirky personality things you can find in antique stores. It's just so much fun. Okay, and then my final tip is when you are out shopping in antique malls, really just trust your gut. If you love something, you'll know it when you see it. There have been a few times, it still happens to me, where I will walk away from something and I'll think, oh no, I should have brought that home with me. And I have even gone so far to like when I was antiquing in Chattanooga, which is like a 4-hour drive for me. I have kids that live down there. I have multiple times called up my daughter and said, can you go back to this store and pick this up for me, because I should have brought it home with me. And there have been other times where I've come home and I wished and I've had regrets about what I didn't bring home, and then I go back and it's not there anymore. And that's just such a bummer. I do try to be really mindful when I'm shopping, and if I'm not sure, a lot of times I'll walk away, and then I'll sit on it for a couple of days in my head, and and sometimes I say to myself, you know what, I actually really do want that, and I'll go back. And I've had several things that I've brought home with me, that I really thought about for a few days before going back to the store, and those turn out to be good purchases because I'm sure when I bring it home. So trust your gut. If you're not sure, walk away and think about it. But just remember that, very often when you're in an antique store, when it comes to furniture, especially like little tables or accent chairs, things like that, it may be a one of a kind. You may find something similar later, but you don't know how long you're going to have to wait to find it again. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that like if you really, really love something, if you walk away from it, it may not be something that you can just easily find again. But you do want to be sure. I am not trying to add clutter to my life. Nobody needs extra clutter. And, it's good to have an idea of how you will use something before you bring it home. So just keep that in mind though. Yeah, so those are my tips for you if you are just getting into antiquing, if you're new to antiquing. 10 things that you can look for in antique malls, antique stores, that you will absolutely be able to use in your home and treasure for years to come. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like, hit that like button, and subscribe if you haven't already. I try to post new antiquing videos every single week. I usually post at least once, and I've gotten really consistent lately. I'm pretty proud of myself after having several months of just life things getting in the way, which is okay because my family comes first. But I have been super consistent, and I'm really enjoying hanging out with you guys every week here on my channel. So like I said, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and be sure to leave a comment. I love chatting with you guys. I have literally the best audience. You guys are just so great, and I really have enjoyed getting to know quite a few of you in the comments below. I'd love to get to know you too. So leave a comment. I will see you in the next video, and yeah, y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.